welcome to UK Disclosure. It's Easter Sunday today, and it's been a long time since I've done a video, so I do apologise if you've been awaiting a video. Which has had a bit of a break. I had one of those flu things that was going around, made my blood pressure go a bit high, so I wasn't feeling too good. And I just thought I wanted to step back for a while. I may have only done a few videos here, but obviously I never stopped looking and researching. And sometimes you just need to take a step back, and it's quite amazing when you take a step back because you realise just how ignorant people are to what's going on. It's bizarre. You get into the subject matter and you see how much is going on, and it's quite incredible. And then you step back, you cut yourself off from all of that, and you see what the view's like from the world around you. Nothing's changed. Everything's carrying on as normal. Exactly the same. Everyone's oblivious, absolutely oblivious. And I just got tired of bringing people up to date on what's been going on. I mean, I told them about Facebook, that Facebook was going to go down. Told them that a while ago, and nobody believed me. Oh yeah. I said, yeah, there'll be court cases coming up against Facebook and Google. And yeah. And look at Facebook now. What have they lost? 55 billion in shares. They've gone down. Zuckerberg disappeared for a little while. I think he's reappeared now. Everybody's after him. They want to get him in court about all this information sharing that he done. All of our information. You know, I try to tell people about this stuff, but they just don't listen. They just don't listen. They don't care. They don't even care. Even now when I bring up Facebook, you know, and what's been going on, do any of them turn around and go, hey, you told us all about that? No. They're even more ignorant. They're even more snappy with you when you bring it up because they don't like it because you were right. And I think it just, maybe it scares them a little. I don't know. I would imagine it probably does. But they just don't care that people are taking away their civil liberties, you know, their freedom. Somebody's spying, taking every bit of information. But anyway, yeah, so it was good to step back for a while and just have a look around me and see what was going on. And my God, people are ignorant. But there you go. Anyway, I want to bring up my last video was obviously about the UFO disclosure. It took a little while. You know, it was supposed to be at the end of that month. It did take a little bit longer, but I did say that it was all down to the New York Times whether or not they could be bothered to take time out from bashing Trump to actually put the information out there. But it turns out that they did in the end. I didn't think they had it first. When I first saw it, I assumed it was just the video had come out on the website of To the Stars, but it turns out that it was actually in the New York Times as well. But again, the fact that I stepped back, I didn't hear a single person talking about it. It just proves how, as I was saying on the previous video, how you need some big impact event for people to actually take notice, and I just don't think this is. You know, here we go. So this is basically the footage that they put out there. And the very first thing I looked at when I saw it, because I come from sort of a photographic background, I imagined if you were filming, say, seabirds and you're on top of a cliff looking down, if you zoom in onto a seabird that's traveling along across the top of the waves, it looks like it's going fast. And that was the first thing that hit my head when I saw this. You know, the first thing I thought was it could have been a white bird, and someone could have zoomed right in. It looks really fast. You just see this white blur. I mean, it's not. But what I'm saying is it didn't impress me because of my photographic background. Now, there's going to be other people out there who think the same. There's going to be other people out there who go, "It's a white blob. Whoopie-doo." So again, as I keep saying, we need something more substantial. But, you know, something's better than nothing. So rather than me just go on about it for ages and ages, I mean, at least as you can see here, they've put a lot of background information. This time they were actually able to say that it was authorised by the government, which it was authorised by the government. But then it's not exactly letting out any secrets, is it really? So anyway, you know, some people are getting something. You've got an analysis of the video here. I'm just hoping that this program comes out that I heard about, that they were going to follow up with to put more evidence forward. So let's just see whether that happens or not. But you know, at least they put a lot more explanation here, which is good. Which is good. So if you go to the New York Times post, you see the military keeps encountering UFOs. Why doesn't the Pentagon care? When you look through this, the way they present it, it's not loading again. This thing drives me nuts. If you listen to it, the reason they're saying that you should take more notice of it is, oh, what if some other country has got some advanced technology that we haven't got? And as per normal, they bring up Russia and they bring up China. So it's the same old thing when it comes to that. Any chance to bash Russia, and you'll see that as you read through here, you'll see they'll often mention Russia, etc. But it was quite a good article, but it was actually written by one of the guys who's in the To the Stars Academy, one of the advisors to it, Christopher Mellon, I believe. Yeah, Christopher Mellon. So it is an interesting read. There's not too much disinformation in there, so it was a bit better this time, a little bit more presentable. Now I had a few comments on the previous video, and it was comments about, you know, absolutely fine, no problem whatsoever. I replied to those comments, and I've been there before. I've said the same things as what these people were saying. You know, oh, you're never going to get anything. The CIA aren't going to give you anything. The government aren't going to give you anything. But that's not actually true, because you've got to think about, where does all this information come from? It comes from people who are in departments of secrecy. It comes from people in the government. Any information that we've ever received has come from the inside. So we do get information, and there's occasions where you're going to get them wanting to release information, and they will give you real news, they will give you the truth, but there's obviously an agenda behind it, so they may then chuck out some disinformation. Now the one thing, whenever you look at any report whatsoever, just remember the saying, you know, what you giveth with one hand, you taketh away with the other. So what they tend to do is, they put out some information, so you get this, bang, there's a bit of truth, something fantastic, you're like, wow, that's brilliant, excellent. And then the second part will be the disinformation. The idea of that is if you're really interested and you really want to research it, you'll find out that some of the information's true, but they don't want to just go and dump it all out there. They don't want to take responsibility. You've got to understand that this stuff's been kept secret for 70 years. They do not want to take responsibility. The other thing they've obviously done with all the actual materials, everything's been farmed out to private industries. So when you have a private industry, they're not held accountable for anything. You know, if it's the government, the public have a right to know. When it's private industries, the public don't have a right to know. So the person you want to look up is Bigelow Aerospace. He's the guy. He gets funding from the government. He supposedly, if you looked in the first New York Times post, the first disclosure that to the Stars done, you'll notice there's a very small section on materials from crashed craft, and that's held by Bigelow Aerospace. So that's where some of the materials are. So when you do a freedom of information to the government, you say, I want to know about this, I want to know about that, or is there any, have you got any material from crashed craft? They say, no, we haven't got anything like that. And then you're going to say, oh, well, they're all lies. Well, they're not lying, because they haven't actually got it. We have a guy who is in our Ministry of Defence over here in the UK, Nick Pope, and I read one of the books, or he was mentioned in a book, and it was quite true what he was saying about they may change the terminology of things. So you may put in a freedom of information to say, I want to have all the information you have on UFOs over Britain, and they say we haven't got anything, and you think you're lying. Well, they're not, because they've changed it to UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, or they may change that terminology again. You have to be so specific in what you ask when you do a freedom of information, otherwise you're going to get nothing. You get absolutely nothing. So I've gone off the point a little bit there, but going back to disclosures by the government, mainly the CIA are the people who have held all the information and held the big secret on the whole UFO issue. Now, if you go right the way back to the 70s, okay, now back in the 70s there was a documentary called It Has Begun. There was some guys that were called in to do a documentary, and the CIA were involved in that, and they had to do a series of 8 videos to do with the government, the military, etc. They dropped a bombshell on them and said, we want one of those 8 to be on UFOs. What would you say if we told you that we'd had a landed craft, we had a meeting with extraterrestrials, and we swapped data, we had one of those extraterrestrials for some time? What would you say? And this guy didn't believe in any of that stuff. Anyway, he was supposed to have been given footage from the Holloman Air Force base. That goes back to the 50s, where you had, was it President Truman, wasn't it, who apparently went to Holloman Air Force Base. A UFO came down, landed, and they had conversations, etc., with these extraterrestrials. Now that's in history, we know about that, but they were going to release this. They were going to release this information. They were going to put it into this documentary. They were going to drop it in there. So if you go to, as you see on the screen here, UFOs It Has Begun, it's an old documentary, but it's worth watching, because at the point you can see on the screen at 1 hour 27 minutes, it turns out that although at the last minute apparently this footage was pulled away and they weren't allowed to use it, it came out later on that the guy, I think his name was Rod Steinman or some such name, he actually said there was about 8 seconds of footage in this video. And what that 8 seconds of footage is, I'll show you right now. You'll see. And it is actually the UFO coming down over the mountains, coming towards the base. Now that supposedly is actual real footage, and there was a number of cameras that were set up, and it was filmed from different angles.
Is made by extraterrestrial beings with representatives of the United States Air Force at Holloman Air Force Base in the deserts of New Mexico. The day is clear. It's about 5:32 a.m. at Holloman Air Force Base. The travel light. One recon plane is on the field ready for takeoff when Sergeant Mann is given a report of an approaching unidentified craft.
Yeah, Bill, no, nothing on board 730. I'll repeat it again. Unidentified approaching.
I hope you can hear this, because it's just the audio from the speakers on the laptop being picked up by the webcam. But you can go watch it yourself.
Check with Edwards. Make contact with him, Bill.
There you go, this piece of footage now, that piece of footage there is meant to be genuine, 100% genuine. And to be fair, it does actually look quite genuine. Remember back in the 50s, you know, the sort of technology they had then, I don't know, there's sometimes you get those gut feelings about things, and I just feel as though that does look like true footage. But the whole point of this was just to say that there were comments about, you know, that the government, etc., won't give out information, they wouldn't do that. Well, they do. They're the people who have been doing it. The CIA leak things out now and again. You've got to remember that you'll get different proponents in there. You'll get people who think it's time for the truth to come out. You get people who think there's no way anybody should know. We want to keep this secret. There is also, they always say it's to do with national security. Well, we can't release things. But that's true. Of course it is. They want to remain number one. They don't want to have a threat from any other country. So all the time they have these back-engineered exotic aircraft and technologies, they're going to remain number one. So they're not going to release that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of truth in what you hear. You've got to be able to pick out the truth from the crap, basically. Now, talking about how information comes out and about, now that would have been a documentary, so fair enough, you know, that's non-fiction, okay, supposedly non-fiction. So when you go to the side of fiction, now think of To the Stars Academy. The whole idea of that, Tom's side of things, was to put things in a fictional account, maybe in books, in movies, to try and bring out information about technologies, UFOs, ETs, and all that area. And that was his side of it. You know, that's the money making side. You invest and you could make some money. Now, this has been going on for a long time. You might want to look into the fact that the CIA has they have a department that deals with public matters, etc. You know, so people can go there and ask for information, maybe if they want to do a filming or a documentary, etc. It's just their liaison for the public side of things. Now that department is the department who goes to movies and says, well, why don't you include this bit of information, or why don't you include that, or movie makers can go to the CIA and ask for information. And that's why you see a lot of movies that are quite true to fact. You know, a lot of the stuff that's in them is real. And the same thing has been happening for years on the UFO, the whole UFO theme, the whole science theme, etc. Now, to explain that better, I totally recommend this Hollywood Occult Predictive Programming by Jay Dyer. I'll put the link down the bottom so that you can go and have a look at it. It's brilliant. I mean, it's only an hour long, and I'll tell you what, by the end of it, you'll just think, wow, I totally understand now how this information gets into the movies. And here give you quite a few examples of how something's appeared in a movie and then years later it's actually happened. Things like 9/11, for example. Various things like that. But it's easy. You just go and have a look at it. Honestly, watch it. It's brilliant, and it's something different to watch, but it gives you a little bit of an idea of a different area of all this subject matter to where information is given to the general public. It's just to seed your mind. And I think that's why we're in an age now where just about everyone believes that there's life outside of this planet. You know, when I was a kid, no one would have said that. So, you know, watch this program. It's absolutely brilliant. Really good. Now, one of the other things that you want to keep an eye out for when you're talking about disclosures right now is Nixon's ET time capsule. Again, I'll give you the link. This is the Dark Journalist website. Watch this interview with a guy called Robert Merritt. He worked alongside Nixon, and at the time that the what was it called again? The Watergate came about. Basically, Nixon was set up. Really, he thought that he knew what was coming, but it was actually people that he thought he could trust that was taking him down. Because yet again, he was another person who wanted to bring the ET subject out into the open. So he was taken down, just like JFK, just like what was his name again? Ronald Reagan. I mean, they tried to take him out. He wanted to come out about the UFO stuff. And you've got to also realise the position that Donald Trump's put himself in. Okay, I haven't talked about UFOs as such yet, but he's taken down the deep state. You know, it's all being done behind the scenes. So he's not getting any credit for anything whatsoever. All he's getting is 10 ton of shit because people don't realise just what he is doing for the world. And he's putting his own life at risk. You've seen these other presidents taken out. There's plenty of people in different positions been taken out. So you've got to understand what he's doing, what risk. And he didn't need to do any of this. He didn't want to go into the presidential race right from the start. He said he wasn't interested, but he was talked into it because he was the right person, because he can take the crap and he can give it back. And he's a very clever person. Don't underestimate Donald Trump. He's very good at playing poker, believe me. But yeah, go and have a look at this Nixon's ET time capsule. The basic premise is Nixon couldn't trust anybody around him. He realised that when all the scandal broke out, and this Robert Merritt was somebody he knew he could trust. And so basically what he'd done, he wrote a letter that talks about the ET subject, that they had an alien and the ET technology, and he put it in a little time capsule, and it's hidden in the White House somewhere, and the only person who has the whereabouts is this Robert Merritt, and he never knew when it was supposed to come out. He was told by Nixon, "You'll know when the time is right." And I think the other person, what was the name of the other guy? I can't remember what his name was now. There's meant to be two people. I've lost where his name is now. I can't remember. Oh, it was Kissinger, wasn't it? Henry Kissinger, that was it. Yes, it's like Henry Kissinger and this Robert Merritt. Now, this Robert Merritt is on his deathbed because he's very, very ill. As you find, lots of disclosures come out. So he's decided that it's time to break out that capsule. Now, because obviously Nixon was set up and made it look as though, you know, he was part of the whole Watergate scandal, he was a bit upset because he wanted to continue as president of the United States, and he wanted to bring out the whole ET UFO subject, and he wanted to be somebody who to go down in history. So he done this time capsule for that very reason, so that in the future, when the time was right, his capsule could be brought out and his name could be cleared, or at least he would go down in memory and in history. So this whole thing is about retrieving that capsule. So they've gone to the National Archives and they said, look, we'll show you where it is in the White House. We need to be there when you find it, though, and the only condition is that you have to release it to the general public. Nixon's letter has to be read to the general public, and then you can keep it, put it in the National Archives. And quite obviously this would be a major thing. But you can imagine how difficult that's going to be. So I'm not quite sure how they're going to do it, but they're going about it as best they can. So if that comes out, that could be a way. Now you think about it, like Donald Trump is never going to talk about UFOs. He's never going to bring out about the whole UFO thing because he needs to remain, you know, the whole stigma about the UFO thing. He needs to keep his credibility. So therefore, he's not ever going to bring that out. But that could be the ideal opportunity. Well, I didn't say it. It's in Nixon's letter. Ideal, and it happened in Trump's era as well. So who knows? You know, I think that would be a good idea for Trump to allow that to happen. I really do. But that's something to look forward to anyway. And lastly is I quite liked this. Now, when I was talking about UFO footage, and that I'm never really that impressed because I've seen so much. This was brilliant. I don't know if you saw this, that was on the news, Mystery in the Sky over San Jose. And I'll play this so that you can hear it, hopefully, or I'll give you the link anyway so you can go and watch it. But this was quite amazing. I was really impressed with this because I was talking to you about time portals, you know, maybe black holes, time portals, or travel into other dimensions in the previous video, that those sort of things would come forward. We've been hearing all, well, I say we have had some over here in the UK, but there's been a lot of the big booms that have been rattling houses, etc. over there in America. And somebody's finally caught something on video, and it's quite amazing because it looks to me as though it goes into some sort of portal. But I'll play this for you just so you can get the gist.
Take a look at the mysterious light in the sky. There you see it, followed by a loud boom that rattled some San Jose neighborhoods. The majority of the people high school off 85 and Almaden Expressway. NBC Bay Area's Ian Cole is live near there. And Ian, any idea what this was?
No, we simply don't know what it is, but most people told us it was louder than any firework they've ever heard. They say they felt it inside their homes. And one thing is clear tonight, that this has now become the talk of at least several San Jose neighborhoods.
You can see this is coming from way over on this side.
This is quite incredible.
Posted to a South San Jose Next Door page shows a small light travel across the sky for about a minute. Then a flash and boom, and it disappears.
Oh yeah, that doesn't do it justice at all.
Dale Johnson says it shook windows and set off car alarms Sunday just before midnight.
New Year's Eve, there's always some mortars or M100s or even M1000s going off around here and at the park. We know what those are. This was nothing like that.
He's not alone. Next door had more than 120 comments, people saying it sounded like it was right outside their front door.
I thought at first that maybe it was the transformer blew, but we've had that happen before and it wasn't that.
A lot of people heard it pretty far away, too.
We asked the FAA if they could identify the flying object. A spokesperson didn't want to guess, but said it did not look like any aircraft operation. The neighbors, including the man whose camera captured it all, is just as confused.
Want to find out what it was. But the fact that we haven't heard, it's kind of weird.
In San Jose, Ian Cole, NBC Bay Area News.
So there you go. The mysterious light and boom startles San Jose residents. And that's it from me, basically. I just want to do a quick update. I'm a little bit rusty, so I probably wasn't very clear.
SHN's 2018-2019 season is now on
dear
sale.
me, shut
Become
up.
an SHN member today and get first access to purchase
Sorry about
tickets
this,
to
get
the
rid of
return of
that.
Hamilton. Plus, guarantee your seats to 7 more
Go
blockbuster musicals
away.
coming to San Francisco.
Thank you. God, dear me. Yep, so that's it from me, UK Disclosure. I'll do another video very soon this time and be a little bit more organised. But I just wanted to bring some information across to you. There's a few things for you to go and check out. But I hope everyone's well, hope you're doing good, and hope all your family's well. And I will speak to you later. Thank you, and goodbye from UK Disclosure.